Of all the shows I expected you to suggest for my anniversary series on the Gundam franchise, After War Gundam X was not one of them, but someone did, and I have to say I've been looking forward to covering it. It's definitely one of the more obscure entries in the franchise, and it's one that many of you might not have seen, considering its low viewership in Japan and how it took 20 years for a North American release, much less anywhere else outside its home country. So let's dive into the post-apocalyptic wasteland, shall we? Like its immediate predecessors, G Gundam and Gundam Wing, Gundam X takes place in its own separate universe, fittingly called the After-War timeline. It takes place 15 years after a war, one that began from one colony trying to declare independence and ended with the space side dropping not just one but a ton of colonies onto the Earth, killing 9/10 of the human population and making the planet resemble Swiss cheese. It's a survival story with a desert and salvage world where our hero is introduced throwing a Molotov at a bandit who walked out of Mad Max. Maybe because of the tonal shift, Gundam X is probably best known for having low ratings during its run and thus being moved from a primetime slot up to 6 a.m. and eventually cut down to 39 episodes, or a little over 3 cours instead of 4. Even so, as bleak as the show gets, it's still got plenty of energy that makes it stand out from other series like it. The basic outline is that townsboy Garrod, who's knowledgeable about mobile suits but doesn't want to risk himself actually piloting, gets hired by a stranger asking him to rescue a mysterious girl named Tifa from salvagers known as vultures. Except they had actually rescued her from him, because he had kidnapped Tifa in the first place to study her psychic abilities. Why? To help his company dominate what's left of the free market. Insert late capitalism joke. When Garrod finds out, he takes Tifa and runs, and she leads him to Gundam X, a powerful and important mobile suit. The two of them join up with the Vulture ship, though he tries to quit a couple times, and aim to save other new types from the same experimentation. Through this, they repeatedly fight multiple governments and a pair of Fabio-looking smarmy genocidal brothers, and also prevent another war, because the world's pretty messed up as it is. This season's underrated for a lot of reasons. The animation alone is great, as it not only looks good for the 90s, but also shows a lot about the characters rather than just making everyone look similar and generically pretty all the time. The machines are pretty cool too, especially with the transforming mecha element. Garrod's bold, intelligent, yet often overconfident personality is definitely entertaining, as is the focus on his development from looking out for number one to learning to trust other people. The season also takes an interesting look at the traditional Earth versus space conflict and brings back the concept of new types, only for the ending to challenge what we know about them. One thing that made it unpopular was how it took place mostly on Earth and in what's mostly a wasteland instead of G Gundam's wacky globe hopping, but that really just makes Gundam X interesting to watch since it's so visually different from the others. The effect of the cancellation is a little obvious, with the show seriously picking up the pace in the last third and partially abandoning the wide character focus it had in the past, but the faster finale's been pointed out as a good point for those who thought the other arcs dragged on a bit, so your mileage might vary. Tifa does fall into the pattern of emotionally challenged plot device love interests who faint a lot and get kidnapped once or twice per story arc, so that can feel a little tired. So can the fact that Garrod, who has such trust issues otherwise, immediately falls in love with a girl he knows nothing about just because she needs saving. The relationship does at least get development in series, with him examining later on whether he's really just there for console RPG cliché rule number 3. Still worth noting, though. My biggest gripe is that there's an entire episode about dolphins, but I don't expect anyone to share my weird irrational fear. As one of the underperforming Gundam seasons, Gundam X had the dubious honor of not being licensed and released when Bandai Entertainment had the franchise. After that folded and all of Gundam went to Sunrise, it did eventually get a physical release through Nozomi Entertainment, which is Right Stuff's anime licensing and production wing. It's a sub-only release with no extras aside for the clean op-ed, but the video and packaging are good quality. There's no current stream available, but the DVDs are easy to find, and sometimes Right Stuff will have a good sale on. After War Gundam X is an engaging, underrated show, and despite the grim premise, it's got likable, flawed, engaging characters that keep you actually caring if they survive. I've also got to respect a futuristic anime that makes its characters look so 90s the lead's got a fanny pack. I liked it a lot more than I expected to, so if you come across it, it's worth checking out. Let me know in the comments what your favorite underrated old school anime is. This is Secret Identity Studio, and dolphins.